Uh, Very good morning to everyone. So today I'm going to explain about what do you mean by a service-oriented architecture and the basics and fundamentals about what a service-oriented architecture does, and we'll be discussing a little bit about REST API. So the first, we just want to uh, the evolution of SOA, the service-oriented architecture. So normally, what this diagram says all about is, so we will be collecting the data from the various sources. So, for example, so it might be an aircraft, or it might be from the space, or it might be from the mobile, or it might be from the data centers, or it might be from the database, or it might be from the cloud. So we'll be getting an information from anywhere in an external world, right? So what here the service window architecture does is, so the thing is, so we will be collecting the data through sensors devices. So SS stands for sensor. So it says about the sensor devices. So each and every device. So for example, you can take automatic self-driving vehicles. So the vehicle which is surrounded by the sensors. So the sensors will detect an information. So if there is any object which locates 100 meters or 200 meters far away from the particular vehicle, right? So what the sensors does is, so the sensors will collect an information, and this sensor, so that sensors collects an information. So those data, we call it as an raw data. So if I want to find some end results, so if I want to make some decision, so I can't able to extract an information from raw data. So what I need to do is I have to I have to pre-process the raw data, and I have to make the data, raw data into a data, and data into an information, and the informations to a knowledge and wisdom. And based on that, I can make a decision whether the car can hit that vehicle objects or not. So the object between the car and the object, what is the distance between those two? So, and do I need to really want to reduce the speed of the vehicle? So that is what the decision that I have to make when I automatic self-driving vehicles moves on the road, right? So similarly, so what here does is the sensor devices will collect an information from the external entity, and it sends to the filter services. So filter services represents so the pre-processing of the data. So it filters and it removes the unwanted noisy data, and it's what it does is, so after filtering the unwanted and noisy data, so based on that extracted information, the output of the filter services will be the knowledge. So using that knowledge information, so we'll be taking a decision. So example for weather forecasting. So tomorrow or tonight the rain will comes or not, the cyclone will hit the particular cities or not. So these are all some decision has to be made by the weather forecasting, right? So meteorological department. So the meteorological department, what it does is, so the satellites will sense the information through the sensors. So it will reach the information, and it sends to the base station. The base station, what they do is they use the filter services, and they will pre-process the data. They will clean the data, and they will extract the data from the by using the filter services, and they will make the decision: will rain comes or not, right? So this is what actually the exactly what it happens for data processing. So the point, whatever I discussed with the diagram is shown here, and the elements. So what are the elements that we'll be using on SOA? So service-oriented architecture normally it contains about an application front end, services, and a service repository and service process. So coming to the services, so you will be having it will be categorized into three parts: a contract, implementation, and interfaces. So again, the implementation says about the business logic and the data. So what application front end? So what it does? It's something says about user interface, right? So, and the services. So, what do you mean by services? Services is a self-contained unit of software that performs a specific task. So, it might be in any size of services. So, whatever I said to you. So, it might be like weather forecasting, or it might be an automatic self-driving vehicle, or it might be like nowadays the people have started to use about an IoTs, right? So, IoTs, what it does, it uses a sensors to read an information. So, even automatic room controlling temperature. So nowadays the AC with a smart intelligent technologies are there. So what it does is it reads the room temperature, and it works on automatically. It won't wait for the human to start or stop, right? So it will detect the room temperature and it will work automatically. So that is something we call it as a services. And a contract says about the agreements to access the services. And the implementation is something which says about the developing of actual services so that we mean to do for the customer. So that is something we call it as an implementation. So it says about simply we can say that the logic and the data which comes under the implementation part. And interface, the method that is exposed to the public to access the services. So that is something we call it as an interfaces. And service repository says something about it. What it does is the place where the all the services or register for a consumers to locate. So that is something we call it as a service repository. And service bus is something, it's a route that request from the customer to the respective services. So that way, the communication channel on what way that the data is going to transfer from the customer to the services. So that is what the elements. So these are all something the elements that we use in the SOA service oriented architecture. So apart from that, so you will be having a benefits. So SOA is something we call it as an we say it as an it's a, something a current trend. Each and every uh, applications that we'll be concentrating on service oriented architecture. So the benefits of the service oriented architecture is service reusability, easy maintenance, platform independent, availability, reliability, scalability. So those are all some major benefits which comes under service oriented architecture. And when we speak about the disadvantage, we call it as an high overhead and a high investment for implementing the service-oriented architecture and the complex service management. So these are all something we call it as a disadvantage of service-oriented architecture, but still we do have a lot of benefits in service-oriented architecture. So the most of the industries, almost all the industries, they will use the service-oriented architecture and they provide the service to the various end users by using two major service-oriented architecture style. One is REST, uh, representation state transfer, and another one is web services. So I hope you know about the web services. So every client server operations, so any application that works under the client server method, so which comes with the web services. So this is what the overall introduction about the web services. So I hope you people do understand about what it's all about.